running in the country. It brings us down to one particular question. What does the sports industry have to offer individuals who wish to convert their passion for sports into professionalism? On that, allow me to introduce you all three people from the Indian sports industry who perhaps have revolutionized sports media in their own respective domains and have created value and impact in the Indian sports ecosystem. Starting first, of course, a man who know introduction and of course with the jewel of Pune, I like to put it that way, Mr. Gaurav. Of course, Mr. Gaurav comes from a house national champions of the two generations. Gaurav, of course, is the greatest champion, is a seven-time national champion and a double Asian Games medalist stay on with us today. And of course, we have recorded the Arjuna Award for tennis in 1996 and now successfully heads a sports consultation advisory company by the National Sports and Fitness. Welcome, Gaurav, and we need all your privilege to tag along with Next up, of course, is a man who connected to an 8-year-old and an 18-year-old at the same level with all enthusiasm and passion. Mr. Gaurav, Mr. Gaurav has a 2 years of rich work experience across various sectors and industries such as hospitality, retail estate, retailing, IT, financial services, education, and sports. He was the founder and CEO of Radha Holdings and is a board member in numerous companies. And of course, with a strong background in finance, corporate strategy, and general management, Gaurav has been an integral part of the group's success. With his support, of course, Gaurav served as the CEO for franchising in the Sri Lankan Premier League, and of course, has been the president and CEO of a team which we all love out of Pune City. And of course, currently is the CEO of Maharashtra United Table Tennis. Gaurav, of course, now serves as the chancellor and of the Global Ministry of Sport Business and also the chairman of the Untitled Chapter. The love is always the phenomenal serve and to Pune. Next up, I'm going to talk to the man who also transcends global boundaries from India to US, Europe, India, and across the world. Mr. Neil Shah. Neil has almost 2 decades of experience in the development and commercialization of football in North America, Asia, Europe, and in the current position with India on Chapter, Neil is responsible for running the global industry of sports business as well as securing new businesses for the group. He was the former CEO of PSA Shivaji Tennis and of course the Global International Academy. Neil now serves as the business director, of course has served as the business director for various sports where he was responsible for guiding and advising Indian football stakeholders with their investments and facilitating strategic partnerships to further the industry and has successfully helped footballing giants like Manchester United, FC Barcelona, Liverpool FC Bayern to build their brand in India. Neil, of course, previously spoken around India, has spent 7 years with the Europe-based injury soccer, serving as the league director of development, and now serves as the program director at the Global Ministry of Sports Business. A big round of applause for the Indian Olympic also shares with such healthy process. Now, of course, we are talking about an industry which is evolving, especially at the post-pandemic. Gaurav, now you are sorry, the first question was on the was Now, of course, it's an order for us to know Chapter and can you tell us what you got in sports and some of the highlights from slowly development at the highest level?
Well, there's a lot of experiences. I don't know which ones to start with. But I think it's always a pleasure, playing activity. There are a lot of cliches that you get goosebumps when you play for a factory and all of that. But now I'm seeing so many sports events. On TV, I also do some commentary work as well. So even when I'm commentating and I actually see an Indian good when I'm commentating, it's a very, very special feeling. And I think that today's athletes have so much more that they can look forward to, and I think that that's going to be part of the discussion that comes up. For me, it was never about playing the sport for money. My father was the one that was doing badminton, so sports was very much in the family. My wife was now the next thing most of my family plays some sports or the other. My kids play sports as well. So I think for us it was a given that we were going to play sport, and I think that what has happened now, especially after the pandemic, I was just talking to somebody, is that people have realized how important it is to play sport or to stay healthy. I think for the last 8-10 years, we saw a chip revolution in the country. There was a sprouting, on every nook and corner almost. But I think all the first and especially the second packaging where there was so much chaos and all of us, I think, lost somebody close or came close to losing somebody close to us. And I think that whole immunity talk is now taking on a whole new meaning. And I think it's great for people like us, or people like me who keep shouting from the rooftops saying that, you have to play some sport, you have to exercise, and everybody thought I was just doing it to increase my business. Sure, that was also easy. But I think that the fact that this pandemic has brought forth very, very strongly the fact that whether it's a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old or an 80-year-old, there is no start time, there is no finish time to actually stay fit and stay healthy. And I think that's why I believe that the sports and health industry is, in India is poised to really take off.
Absolutely, of course. Coming from a gentleman as he was to the top 10, of course, we talked a lot about your experience and what's transition to sports management, women as well. Mr. Mohan, I come to you, of course. Over the last 2 decades, you represented some of the most prestigious organizations, the real estate, the IT, financial services, a lot of experience. And now, of course, from the sports industry to education as well. What distinguishes the sports industry from others? And how is your experience in this sector?
Yeah, I've been extremely fortunate to have been part of these industries and leadership as well. Got a chance to understand these industries. But I'm even more fortunate that one of them turned out to be sports. So, if you look at the difference between sports, managing a sports organization versus managing other businesses, the core remains the same. So, a sports organization largely also has profit motives and valuation, maximization motives there. So it involves a similar kind of management expertise, which is management HR, marketing, so technology. However, sports is very unique in what its product is, because in all your businesses, your product and services you provide is a tangible product or a service. Here, what you are really selling, what you are really harnessing is a relationship. That's the heart of sports business. So you see, there is manufacturing and retailing in sports, just laying it out of everyone. So there's manufacturing and retailing, there's broadcasting, there's grassroots. And there are various segments which are there in sports. But the heart of sports really is the competition. So whether you are playing at the national, international levels, or Olympics, national, Asian Games, national games, but leagues and clubs, this is the heart of the entire business. And that per se is very, very unique in terms of what you offer. So product is actually a passion. It's an emotional gratification, and your consumer is a factor. But this is very different from other businesses. The same here, or your revenue, doesn't come from who consumes your product. So it doesn't come from that. It comes from broadcasters and sponsorships, which in India is 90%. In developed economies, it's 70%. Comes from people who are indirectly buying your product, not who are directly buying your product from other things. When they watch someone pays you for watching it. So it's again different in that sense. Look at from the HR and stakeholder perspective. This is the only organization where your stars of the organization are your friends. And they remain with you for 1, 2, or 3 years. And then are your employees who stay with you for 5 years. And the people who you sell to, who are your consumers, stay for life, which are your friends. So it's just reverse of how it is in any other industry from that perspective. Look at competition. You compete on the ground with the other clubs on the pitch, but you come out and compete, build that value. So it has a very interesting economic structures as well as business structures which are different from a normal business. So hence, sports is anything else, someone would like to add and just if someone who is interested in sports want to.
Yeah, I think as an hour discussion, I think a lot of questions would be coming to your mind. So, of course, yes, if you don't have questions, but if any particular question that's been asked, you can feel free to just raise your hand, and of course I'll direct it to the answers.
This is how important passion is for someone learning sports. So it's about managing, it's about creating, managing and harnessing that passion. And players are players of their clubs. And then when you are harnessing passion for players, the club is running the business, the players are moving. They have to create shelters. How do you continuously keep going as a club? Keep investing in your players, keep investing in your club, and creating and harnessing that passion. It's very different from all other businesses.
And of course, I just like to add that, a very funny thing about sport is that, when we speak about emotions disconnection, I think a lot of us, as fans, the emotions we swings into the sport and eventually reflects in the businesses as well. I'm pretty sure about that.
So well said, I just add to the only good meetings, among all good meetings that I attended, we have been to try building rationality in discussions.
Absolutely.
Rather than rationality. So sports fans are irrational and the good meetings become irrational.
Right. Of course, I mean, if you put your religion on, of course, now wouldn't that like do well? Now, we have of course seen different domains across the world, but what are the key highlights from your experience in the Indian sports industry, which is quite more than a decade now? And of course, how has your transition been from various sports, various divisions and many such organizations, to of course, sports kind of education?
Yes, with that point that you were saying, being as the director of brand development in the US, and it's so funny because you ask every single one of you what club you support or ideal franchise, each one of you will say with whatever passion you have, and I ask you why you support them. Each one of you will have a different reason why you might support this or why you might support whatever it might be, because, and it's so interesting, it's an art versus a science to do something like fan engagement. It's a very unique experience. And that's what makes it fun. If you're not just doing the same thing over and over again, you're evolving. And then being in India, it's been incredible ride. I was speaking with Dora and colleagues about my journey, and I still can't believe it's been 12 years. And I look back, there's been so many highlights. But one of the biggest ones for me that I didn't expect when I moved here was helping clubs like FC Barcelona or Liverpool, set up their programming here in this country. Because when I moved here, it was about making a difference, even if it was a small thing. But to be able to go to Europe and spend time with them over there and identify partners here that have the right value, the aligned values, the aligned vision, and actually facilitate those partnerships and see something like the RCS Academy still exists today. And unfortunately, Liverpool DSK Academy is not there, but the kind of players that we produce mean that there's still some legacy. So that was one of the best experiences. Two is actually spending time in America or Europe telling the Indian sports story. When I was in the US, I didn't know anything about Indian sports except for like football, or of course a bit of what's happening in cricket, or what's happening, pretty much not really winning a medal here by 4 years. But being able to go and tell the US and tell the real sports story, what's actually happening in Indian sports, what are the beautiful storylines, what are the opportunities to invest in Indian sports, and actually see something turn on our investment. That's been, when I came here, I didn't know much about it, and all of a sudden I went back and I realized I can have a meaningful conversation about the opportunities in this industry. And the third thing that is setting up GISB. Setting up GISB has been the most important project in my entire life, because it's consolidating everything I've learned as something in your shoes and something great in the industry. Somebody who actually got to work in the industry. Somebody who's been in 3 continents working in the industry. And now, working with my industry peers to actually consolidate all of what we've learned and invested into the future generation of leaders. So moving from running a professional football club and academy and moving to education is very similar. Because at the club here in Loni, all I wanted to do was create an environment that breeds professionalism, that breeds discipline, that breeds individual and collective growth. GISB, it's the same thing. It's just about creating a platform and environment that breeds professionalism, it creates individual growth and collective growth. And it breeds, most importantly, the next generation of sports industry leaders. Because the biggest thing I've learned in India, it's not lack of money or lack of interest that's holding sports back. It's individuals with the right resources, the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right network to actually go out and create the industry. And I think that's what's been really interesting about being in the education space, is that you actually see that you're creating a long-lasting legacy that can make a difference in this industry.
Absolutely, you spoke about creating a long-lasting legacy. Of course, we've seen your work at the SK Shivajins, and just to let you know, of course, the players who he has worked at the foundation level, they're playing at good clubs in India, for the ISL, for the I-League, and for all different clubs. So when you talk about education, and of course, even as running a club, what we talk about is creating a foundation for a lot of young, aspiring individuals in sports, basically. Next up, of course, I'd like to come to you, Mr. Artikar, again. Now, how do you think that the sports industry evolved from the time you were an athlete? And how did you make the transition from being an athlete at the right level to now, of course, into sports management, like we said?
No, I think things have changed a lot. I mean, when we used to play, sounds like I'm very old, but I'm not.
You do not look honestly.
When we used to play, you know, there was no real funding. We had to go out and look for funding. There was hardly any government funding. Today, you know, one can curse the government all they want, but I think that they are doing a lot of good things, you know, in the sports ecosystem. I know so many of the players, young players, who are getting not only financial aid, but also, you know, aid in planning their tours, planning their travel. You know, the Indian passport is not the easiest passport to have. I mean, one can be very patriotic and this thing, but you require a visa for almost every single country that you travel. And when you're playing a game like tennis, or when you're playing an individual sport, like golf, you know, where it's played in over 100, 120 countries, you know, travel becomes a huge nightmare, not to mention the cost of it. You know, if you're a European, you can just, you know, pick any tournament and just take a train and go there. You can't do that when you're from India. So I think a lot of things have changed. In terms of my transition, I think from what I've been told, I'm one of the probably very, very few ex-athletes who've actually gone on into a business. But I was very clear on that. Even though my father was a former world number 3, my mother was a doctor. So for me, you know, she used to always push me to complete my education, and more than completing the education, to read a lot. And I was very clear on a couple of things. One is that I did not want to get into coaching and become a coach when I stopped playing, because I saw how some of the top coaches in our country in almost all the sports were treated at that point in time. There was absolutely no respect, there was hardly any money, there was no growth as an individual, there was no personality, no character development, nothing. And honestly, I would say on that front, while the needle has moved, it has moved very, very little. I still think that, you know, coaches or teachers per se in any industry in our country, I think are woefully underpaid. I think they're not given the respect that they deserve, because they are really bringing up the next generation, right? Whether you're an athlete or whether you're studying to be a mathematician or whatever it is, if our teachers are not given the due respect, they're not going to really build the next generation. So I was very clear that I didn't want to become a coach. So actually, when, you know, when I quit playing and I came back to Pune, and I got married as well, my wife actually, you know, got a job before me, because I had decided that, you know, the easiest thing for me to do was to get into coaching. And I'm going to cut a, you know, long story short here, because, you know, otherwise I could go on. But I think
we can listen to you all day.
But I think that so I decided that I'll take a break and see what I can do other than coaching. So my wife actually started working, and I was, you know, without a job in a sense for the first year and a half of our marriage. And then I saw this opportunity to actually start a retail sports store when we were staying in Aung and Bane. There was nothing really, most of the sports stores were in Deccan. And I saw an opportunity there, so I put in a lot of the money that I earned, you know, from my tennis career, which was decent but not much. And we started a sports store, and then we got into management of sports and recreational facilities, and a lot of the IT companies, you know, Hinjewadi was just, you know, coming up with all the companies. That's really how my journey started, and cut to today, where, you know, like I was saying, we've never really been busier. We do a whole gamut of things through our company, and at a personal level as well. I'm on the advisory board of a few companies, not advisory board, but advisory panel. So I think for me it was all about learning on the street. I had a basic BCom degree which I just about barely managed to get through. But for me it was really about learning, on the street. And I think that's why, having something like the GISB and having these kind of initiatives is so great, because people and youngsters who love sport, who may not have played sport, because 99% of the time their parents would have told him or her at, at 10th standard, 10th standard has come or 12th standard has come, so stop playing and start studying. I can see a few people nodding their heads. But I think that's why it's great that you now have a platform where you can actually have a structure to get a sports management or a marketing degree, because certainly the country needs it, the ecosystem needs it. I think that there is only so many coaches that one needs, but there is so many other things that need to be done. We were just talking earlier, I believe that tech is going to play a huge part in sports. It's already starting a little bit, but just like it's invading all other aspects of our life, I strongly believe that tech is going to play a huge part. So while our Indian athletes struggle to get the best sports science and sports medicine in the country, I think eventually it's also going to come to a stage that if in India we don't have good sports tech or health tech companies, I think that our athletes are going to suffer and it's going to have a trickle down effect. So I think that's really my journey, and I'm happy that I did listen to all the people who told me after I retired that you should get a coach's job, or you should get a job with a public sector undertaking and all of that, which I think 9 out of 10 sports people were doing at that point in time. But I'm happy today, and I think a lot of the other people are also now realize that if they had just taken the chance and had the gumption to actually follow what they believe in, they could have also been successful in what they do. So I hope that there are a lot more sports entrepreneurs that come up, because again that's only going to help the sporting ecosystem and eventually help Indian sport at large.
Absolutely. I think there are too many important points you mentioned. One, of course, was out-of-the-box thinking, which you did during your time, a couple of years back. It's certainly appreciated. Of course, the other important point you spoke about is the respect, at the grassroots level, which a lot of coaches actually require, because they are creating the future of this country and they deserve a lot of respect. And when you speak about respect, it's not just respect which is provided to it, but also with respect to remunerations and their own sustainability. So it's so important for all of us, which is not looked up to at very good. And I think that is a very important point which you mentioned here. So good one, sir.
Says is, instead of being a coach, he is now working towards making coaches life
Absolutely.
better. And we need people who go into policy making, people who think about larger systems to improve the entire sports system. That's a tougher job, that requires work.
Absolutely. Now, just to take on that, Mr. Moderator, to come to you, and of course, this is a very important question to all of you, who must have been thinking that what does the sports industry have, post the pandemic? And a lot of questions, not just you, but a lot of people in the sports industry as well were going through. My question to you is, how do you think the sports industry has adapted to the challenges during COVID, and what are the biggest positives or the silver lining you could see, over the past year?
So, all of us know that sports, being a physical activity, was badly impacted with COVID. But as what the field of sports is, everything bounces back and bounces back faster than sports. So people started finding ways. It was effective. There's no doubt about it. So whether it's a competition structure and you started going into, it's really, really tough to be in those bio bubbles. Whoever has gone knows about what it means. It's tough for players to be without training for long periods. So, and the worst hit was the grassroots. Your sports that you play at the school level, kids going out, playing it, that's the biggest fun part of sports, and that was taken away for a year and a half. However, what we saw as a trend, which Gaurav just touched upon in terms of tech, is the gaming and the esports started becoming bigger. Like the latest survey says people in the age group of 22, it's a pretty much survey, 22 to 40 years of age, close to about 5 hours is an average time spent on gaming, right, in our country. The other reports are talking about the number going up to 70 crores by 2025 in terms of people who are active in not only esports but in gaming per se. Games like chess, Ludo started becoming big. So we saw a lot of movement towards tech. And the second big thing we saw as a positive change is that people lot of us started creating scalable models. So the moment you start, because technology leads to creating scalable models, and when that happened, a lot of investors started having interest in the companies. So two new unicorns came in this period when there was COVID in MPL and Rebuild. And what is not seen is not many other companies got funding for that, and that's where the jobs are getting created. So think of a situation where exports are not happening, but GISB is here, sitting with me trying to hire people from GISB, not getting a single thing. Because everyone is getting placements. So there's a surge of jobs of a different kind, which has happened in spite of being in Pune. Another point which is not seen right now, which you will see in 3 to 4 years time from now, or even longer, is that you will find that in performance evaluation and performance technologies, what you don't see, the wearable technology, a lot of money is going into it. In analysis, in performance appraisal, performance analysis and development, both at grassroots levels as well as at the high performance level. A lot of money is flowing in. The results and the products will be seen a little later, or what's coming out of it. Things like virtual reality and a lot of money is going, because now people see it as a reality that you don't go to a stadium and still want to consume like a stadium. So the days are not far off when you will have your virtual headsets sitting at home, having the same feel as if you are sitting in the stadium with crowd around you, more feel. You could have sensors where when the ball touches a player, you could feel the...
Yeah.
So all this research is happening which we are not seeing right now, but these are positives. So the negatives for the sports industries are time bound, are short term. We will come out of it as soon as the pandemic goes away, but the positives are here to stay.
Very well said. And of course, that certainly serves as a hope for a lot of us, who have been working in the sports industry, and with such a great experience, it's certainly a good thing for all of us to hear to. On that note, of course, I'd like to come to you, Neil, next. You have worked extensively in the West and carry a great experience there. Now, this could be a little contentious, of course, but in what areas do you think Indian sports industry is better than the West, and how can we play to our strengths to grow this sector?
I wouldn't say better than the West, but I'd say it's unique compared to the West. And one of the things that has kept me here for 12 years, even though there are, family and friends are there in the West, and certain comforts for me in terms of my American accent fits in pretty good over there compared to having people kind of tune into what I'm saying. But in India, I found that we're wide open to evolution, and quick evolution. So I'll give you an example. Cricket. That's cricket and ODI. But look what we've done with T20 and how we've done it. But then you look at the West, sports like golf, baseball, they're losing that younger generation right now. But the purists will not look at evolving it too much. And I'm not saying right or wrong here. I'm just saying that in India, even Kabaddi, we've taken Kabaddi, and with PKL, the rules have slightly changed. How it's packaged. It's focused on how do we connect with the larger audience, women, men, younger people. In the West, when we talk about it, we used to sit in board meetings and talk about baseball, golf, talk about other sports that we know that our younger brothers or nephews or sisters are not watching at all, but it'd be hard to make those changes because there is a certain historical kind of institutional way of doing things, and to change that. But I love it here because you can actually evolve and mold things based on what the needs of the market are. And that's what kind of keeps it exciting in a lot of ways. The other part of it that I love, but I don't think everyone loves it, but we've learned how to create in a chaotic and sometimes challenging, sometimes a dynamic and chaotic environment. In the US, I remember even meetings, 5 minutes before we were all sitting there, agendas are there, we're discussing everything in a particular way. There's so much structure, so much system, so much processes. And there's a lot of comfort in that. And there's a lot of ease in terms of the ecosystem. This agency does this does this. Here, when I moved in 2009, it was one way. In 2021, it's far more involved. It's far more professional. Thankfully, a lot of really great people have come in. But it's still chaotic. I mean, you think about some of the villages, some of the small towns, trying to create massive events, and you hear the stories of the U17 World Cup organizers, or even IPL, or ISL organizers, or whatever it might be. It's chaotic. But in a lot of ways, it's fun. Because you want to love your job. And loving your job is just not making it easy. It should come in and we should be able to use Jigard and use relationships and use a particular way of looking at a situation and not get scared by it, but actually see where the gaps are to make a difference. And here, every day, I feel like there's an opportunity to create on top of chaos. And I think that develops a certain life skills that is so unique, whereas in the US, and I can't speak for everyone, we get too rigid and too structured, where we sometimes, if it gets chaotic, we get into troubleshooting mode. Here, it gets chaotic, and we get into, okay, here, I'm gonna step up those. And like I said, it's not for everyone. Some people can hack it, and some people can't. But those who make a difference here, I love them. Because they're the ones who are so quick on their feet, so quick on their minds, so quick, thick-skinned, that they can really rise. And that's what's gonna take this industry high. And the same way they say, if you can drive in India, you can drive anywhere in the world, I believe it. Once you can really develop and build sport here in India, I believe that anybody can go anywhere in the world and find a way to develop sport in a meaningful way, because nothing will face them. That's the opportunity to stay in India and make a difference here.
Absolutely. No, just to add to that, I'm sure a lot of countries in the world, of course, are looking for the cricket model that we run in this country now. It has been so commercially, not just sustainable, but in fact, a profit making. You speak about the IPL being the fourth most profitable league in the world. I think that's something that's astounding, honestly. And, a lot of countries, who are in the developing stage are looking for our country as well. Just to add to that.
Just on that, just think about it. We moved a cricket tournament to South Africa. We moved a cricket tournament to Middle East. And how we've done it. I can imagine moving the NBA to like England or Turkey or Brazil. It's very hard, but we can just do that here. And that's interesting. And we make it work financially and commercially as well.
This narrated a very interesting incident. So this was 3 months before Pune City first match was played. I was sitting with Fiorentina officials in Italy and trying to convince them to come and invest in Pune City. And their question was, okay, so this is the first thing. Are the stadiums finalized? All of us, I said no. Anyone owns a stadium? No. Will you be able to get it done on time? Yes. Do you have any players in Pune City? No. Do you have an academy? No. Do you have an academy in any of the clubs? No. Will the players come? Yes. At the end of it, they kept asking questions and we were so bullish, yes, it will happen. And it's 90 days. You think you will pull up all this and you will have a tournament? Yes, we will have a tournament. So this happens only in India. They were completely faced with it.
And just to add that, of course, people in the West look up to Indians as something, they always create a best and a very easy way of doing the most tedious task. And that's what is certainly credit to a lot of Indians working abroad. So, that's just a way to, put forward things in a better way for all of us working there. Next up, of course, I'd like to come to you, Mr. Natika. Now, we have seen an increase in the number of sports management institutes and, of course, young students and professionals joining the respective programs across the country. Now, can you take us through some primary reasons that has led to this understanding of cognizance, for the young crowd?
Well, I think definitely media and broadcasting for one. I think when we were growing up, we had only Doordarshan. And it was really Doordarshan because you could, in a tennis match you could barely see the ball. But I remember there was only for us tennis players, it was only, Wimbledon that we used to really get together as a family and watch. I think what TV has done, not only for sport, but for so many other industries has really, given it that push. Then of course social media, which has its pros and cons, but I think in this case the younger generation, I mean, it sometimes fascinates me that my 16-year-old son, follows an English club, where he really has no connection. He's never been there, and he wants to go there, of course, and I promised him that at some point I will. But I think that the whole push towards media and advertising in sport, I think, has created a huge interest in the game, thereby leading to a lot more youngsters wanting to take up professions such as sports management and sports marketing. My worry is that there are more teenagers who want to get into the business side of sport, but there are still not as many. I mean, if you look at the ratio of a 5, 6, 8, 10-year-old actually playing a sport vis-a-vis an 18, 19, 20-year-old wanting to do sports management or sports marketing, I think you'll find that that ratio is a little bit skewed. So I think that I hope that a lot more kids actually take to sport. And again, I think that this pandemic, especially the second wave, from whatever I hear of some of my other friends who have coaching academies, and we also work a lot with them. I think that there's this whole like you have revenge tourism. I think revenge sports has also come into the picture. So I know that a lot of the different academies of different sports are getting a lot of kids who are coming in because their parents are now have gotten paranoid and they want them to come and play sport. So I think that that's a great thing. I think the government is doing its part. You have great incredible stories from the Olympics like Neeraj Chopra, the hockey team, the hockey women's team. I mean, how heartbreaking is that? That after so many years, they just missed out on a medal. Aditi Ashok, who for me, was absolutely the story of the games. For a girl who's ranked, 200 odd, she came and she should have won a medal. It was just sheer bad luck. So I think the Olympics comes as a fillip as well. But again, then there's this hype for 6 months, and then it kind of tapers down. But I'm hoping that this year, for the next couple of years, that's not going to happen. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but Neeraj Chopra now, I know his manager well. They're saying that his social media value is 400 crores. That's what he's going to earn in the next 5 to 7 years. So of course I hope he's able to still stay focused and try and win another medal in 2024. But I think these are the success stories that also come about. And just to see the respect, I was talking about respect for coaches, but just to see the respect that athletes are getting now, right? Of course you have to perform at a certain level to get it, unlike in the West where if you just play a sport for your college or for your school, the child or the player is treated very differently and given a lot of respect. I think that has changed. I remember when I was growing up, whenever people used to ask me, what do you do? And I used to say, I'm a tennis player. And they said, okay, you play tennis, but what do you do for a living, right? That I think has changed as well a little bit. So I think those are really the big changes. And again, I'm very, very bullish, on the industry. I feel like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think that if we're able to get the key players in the ecosystem together, I think that, really the sky is the limit.
Right, now just to add on to that, there is one question which a lot of people have, and of course which I would want to know is, now out of let's say 100 people playing tennis, right, we would have probably 4 people who could turn out to be like a world champion. What happens to the next 96? Do we have a system?
No, I think.
And assumption of 4 people.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying,
No, I think
I'm just saying, that after, a lot of them, they're almost at the pinnacle, and then, something happens that, and then they can't. So what happens to them?
So first of all, there can be only one government.
So the assumption is that way.
But in terms of, champions, again, I think that the ratio is far, far lower. I would say, I don't even know, but I'm going to say that, it's maybe 0.001 out of, 100%. So that's another big question. What does one do after, or what does one do if one's sports career doesn't take off? I think that's a question that every parent, more than the child, has today. Because a child, when he's playing at the age of 13, 14, he's not playing for money, he's not playing because he could become India #1. He's just playing because he enjoys the sport. He enjoys the process of winning. He doesn't enjoy the process of losing, but he will learn how to lose. I think it's the parents that really put a lot of pressure on the kids by saying that you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's all armchair coaching. Most of them haven't really played anything to write home about.
We see a lot of heads nodding.
But so I think that there is a lot that the child in any case goes through. Again, what has changed is because of TV, the advent of TV, because of a lot of organizations starting sports management, sports marketing courses and stuff. There's a lot more opportunity for the kid, right? And we ourselves, my company and my colleague Uddhav and our team, we are going to be launching something very, very big. I was telling Gaurav, I can't talk about it, but in the first week of Jan, with one of the largest tech companies in the world, to see how we can create jobs for sports people who have played for India, but have not been able to, get a job, or have not been able to really get into the ecosystem after having played for India. So I think now there are so many careers. I mean, like he said, the obvious ones are, being a coach, being a trainer. You can be a physio, you can be, a reporter, a journalist. You can be in TV or in media. Social media is big. There's so many sports management, sports marketing. All of that is there now, right? CSR. There's a lot of sports. There is a lot of money that is being put into CSR, and that is a completely different ball game. So I think that from a parent's perspective, and this is again something that I shout from the rooftops for the last 20 years, is that I tell the parents that don't worry about what the child will become. He or she will find their way, and these lessons that we will learn growing up, right, in sports, whether it's dedication, determination, discipline, being on time. It's such a non-Indian thing to just be on time, right? And that is again something that's ingrained, because when you're playing a match at 9, you make sure that you're there at 8 because you need to do your warm-up and all of that. All of these things will stand the child in good stead. So I think that, and today more than ever, every international university, everyone, because my son is 18 and the younger one is 16, so I know they are looking at marks, but they're also looking at how well-rounded an individual or a personality the child is. So if the child is playing a sport, if the child is playing an instrument, if the child has created something on his own, those are going to get him into the larger universities and are also going to get him the scholarships. And that's something that I always dangle in front of the parent. And listen, worst case scenario, your child will eventually save you some money because you get a scholarship to go to the US.
On that note, I confirm there is just one government article. Right, thank you so much. And of course, now I'll come to you, of course, Mr. Morgan. Now, you have been the chancellor, of course, JSB. Now, how important is a sports management education for someone who wants to work in the industry? And do you look for candidates with a background in sports management when you're hiring for your own company? So, could you just provide on that?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, as with any other field of management, if you are looking at managers, they need to be trained managers. Right. So, whether if there's someone who has management experience or expertise in a formal education sector, it could be an MBA. That's a preference. But if someone has done in sports management, even better. Because then, as what I was explaining earlier, there is a difference in how sports is sold and how other businesses work. So if it's from a quality education, I don't mean any institute, but if someone has really imbibed that education in sports management, extremely important. And since you're on asking me a question, would I be looking for hiring from good management institutes? One of the reasons why I was behind setting up something like GSB is because I was not getting quality professionals.
Right.
So when an industry is in its nascent stage, it's largely unorganized. And it is said, इसके लिए ऐसा आदमी नहीं चाहिए, because there are set patterns. ये तो कोई भी कर लेगा. And that's all, because you don't use your knowledge to do a lot of things, which Gaurav very rightly touched upon. Like, everything is running very unstructured. And as the money moves into the industry, as it gets organized, it requires more and more managers to actually work and create things. Like in India on Track, for example, we work with La Liga, NBA, MLB, Chelsea, Arsenal, like all the Premier League clubs. We work with all of them. If people who are participating or talking to them and interacting with them, don't understand that language, don't understand what their perspective is, and can't really create something as a product or a service for them, you won't be able to do that. So you need people who are more and more, and especially at the policy level, because we need people to take the right decisions for a sports industry to grow faster. One thing that I would add, which brought up, is about the change we are seeing in this happening, because a lot of people keep asking me this question. Where do we go from here in terms of sports industry, in terms of jobs, in terms of creating employment? My research says that We are today at $2,000 GDP currently. Our per capita PPP model, which is purchasing power parity, we are around 7,000 in terms of our per capita income in a year. If we hit, and China is at 10, 11,000 and their PPP is 18,000, where they exist. It is a lot of this has to do with GDP and what kind of monies we have, which starts changing our investments and our money into the industry in sports. एक micro level पे देखो, अगर एक घर है, पहली चीज you will look at, your food, your house, then you will first thing you will look at education. Right. Already you see a huge surge in the field of education. K-12, at my time, 10,000, 20,000 a year was a good fee to pay for a kid in K-12. Today it's 3 lakh, 4 lakh, it's just shooting down, right? People are happily paying for it. Schools are charging 40,000, 50,000 a year, right? We are already seeing that surge in education. We have already seen that surge in Bollywood. In 90% of the countries in the world, sports comes before entertainment. Right? In our country, it's a little skewed. It's Bollywood, it's entertainment which comes before sports, and then comes sports. So already you are seeing in Bollywood, and I don't know, people of my age would know that 25 crores was a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Right? A movie, and this is not long back, 20 years back. And then it changed. Now we are talking 400 crores in a movie. Like the movie didn't do well, it is 75 crores. It's changed, right? So it has happened in education, it has happened in entertainment. My analysis says that the moment we cross about 10,000 PPP basis or 12,000 PPP basis, sports will see an unprecedented jump. And this is about 7 to 10 years away. After that, next 20 years run will be organizing the sports, because the spends on sports will go up like a completely, it's like an inflection point. And that's when you will see really, and you require management knowledge and education to be prepared at that time to manage that surge. This is how I
Right, I think brilliant point. Of course, for all the ones who are looking forward to work in the sports industry, very important points which you touched upon, Mr. Moderator. Next, I want to come to you, Mr. Neil. Of course, now what are the key essentials of good sports management program should provide to its students? That's number one. And what is the difference between a general MBA and a specific sports management program?
I mean, for everything we've just been hearing about for the last 45 minutes or so, the sports industry is unique. So it's not like a regular sector that it's a particular way, and then you learn that, and you basically then apply it. The sports industry is very dynamic. So what makes a good sports industry or sports education institute for me is it has to be connected to the industry, aligned with the industry. So what you're studying, to take off the mindset of going to a school, going to a university, because that's you're a student still. You're treated like a student. You're approaching it like a student. Your teachers are teachers. But a good sports management institute, in my opinion, a world-class one, will make sure that the entire journey, whether it's 12 months or 24 months or 15 months, feels like you work in the sports industry every day. Every day. Which means you're not writing a paper for 3 months, you study, somebody tells you, like, Gaurav's been my boss for a while, and he never said, Neil, I'm going to make you read these 3 things, and then 3 months from now, I'm going to test you on it. I've never had that happen. He'll call me and say, Neil, this came up, some opportunity, tomorrow I'm going to come in, let's just sit down, I want a basic presentation on it. This is how it should be. We don't say, okay, 6 p.m., okay, work's over, let's go. No, we work, it's dynamic. So the classroom timings have to be dynamic. The experience has to be dynamic. The group work has to be dynamic. You're not always getting to choose your group mates. You don't get to choose your colleagues all the time. And the industry, the people who are teaching should be practitioners in the industry. So what we're talking about is real-time stuff right now.
Right.
What's being taught to you is real-time, also case studies from the past as well. But real case studies that are relevant, that you can understand and apply. So that's massive. The other part of it that I think is missing in education in general, that we do at GISB, is very, very customized individual mentorship. Each person here has a different dream, has a different wiring. Your passions, your strengths, your purpose. You're all, whether you're 20 or 60, it doesn't matter. Each one has a different calling. And we can't just teach you the same thing and then expect that you're all going to go work for IPL or NBA or ISL or Dream 11. We all are going to be fulfilled differently. But to only figure that out, you need committed faculty and mentors and management to work with you. And as they're going through that journey, it's up to us to work with those individuals to bring out the best of you, to help you reach your full potential. That's another one. That's why the cohort sizes have to be very small, right? It has to be tight. And then, more than anything else, I think the internships and placements should be aligned with that as well. It's not about, okay, Star Sports has 20 jobs available, interns, let's just get those 20 over there and we check that off. No way. It's about spending 15 months together, 12 months together, and then understanding that, oh, you really love the space of entrepreneurship in sport. And your dream is to one day set up your own business. Okay, so let's get you in that environment. Let's make sure your mentors are from that space, so you're getting that coming out. And then staying with them as alumni as well. So for me, it's that, and also bringing the West into the East. So condensing and consolidating the best practice of the West and bringing that to the East as well. I'll just touch on quickly the MBA part of it. This is for everyone here. If you're 100% sure you want to work in sports, then I would recommend a sports management program. If you're like, I don't know, maybe, it seems interesting, but I'm not sure, then a general MBA could be better. Because a general MBA is going to give you a sense of more business. Right. But if you're clear that your path is sports management, you're still learning business. So it's business of sports. But you're in an environment that is completely connected to sport. So every day you're meeting people in the sports industry, you're discussing things about the business of sports, your internships and exposure to sports. So by the end of the program, you're going to be far more geared towards working in sports. But if you do a general MBA, it doesn't mean you can't work in sports. It just means that you're going to be a little bit outside of that environment that is fully rigorous and intensive and engaging around the business of sports. And so you're pulling yourself, it's like wanting to be a professional tennis player, but just going to a general academy of sport, a general academy of fitness. But if you want to be a top tennis player, then you would want to be in a tennis academy because you would put yourself in an environment where there's tennis being talked about, other professionals of tennis around. So you're bringing out the most of yourself in that particular field. If you ever want to work in sports, go to a sports management program. It'll make a lot of sense.
Right. Of course, some very crucial points mentioned about how one can differentiate between doing the sport. And since now there is recognition of having a formalized education sector, I think this really adds on to that. But of course, for a lot of young students, who are having questions in the industry. Now, before I throw the floor open, for questions, one quick, the last thoughts for what you all want to tell, the aspiring sports management individuals, starting with you, Mr. Narendra.
No, I want to actually hear if there are any questions. I think we should throw it.
Yeah, sure. I think we should throw it. Okay, all right. So yeah. Of course, anybody who has questions can be anything. We have 3 different stalwarts from different domains in the sports industry. You can feel free to ask your questions. Just introduce your name. If you are coming from any other college, you can just introduce your name and then, of course, you can go for asking a question.
Hello everyone, good morning sir. My question is, my name is Shanto. My question is, suppose somebody who has absolutely no experience of playing sports, like just come out raw from college, come out from school, wants to get into sports management versus somebody who has a lot of experience while playing the sport, but then played probably state level sports, played national level sports. Does the latter person have always an average experience when it comes to the sports management industry, or both the people are at the same pedestal?
Who do you want to hear? I mean,
Yeah, I think when you ask the question, just say who you want to answer. So my take is that no, you don't need to have played sport, not at all. I mean, if you look at, most all the other careers, right? If somebody gets into the food business or starts working for a food company, it doesn't mean that he's done something with food. One of the biggest misnomers and one of the biggest issues I believe in Indian sport today is that because of a lack of a robust, coach the coaches or train the trainers program, everybody just assumes that if I have played tennis for the country, I can be a good coach. Nothing is further from the truth, right? Yes, I could end up being a good coach, but that's not necessary. It's not that just because in fact, I am the first one to say that I will be a terrible coach to beginners, right? Because it requires a completely different skill set. So to answer your question, in my opinion, I don't think one needs to have played sport at a certain level. Obviously, like Neil said, whether you're going to do a general MBA or a sports-specific MBA. If you're going to do a sports-specific MBA, you should at least know about sport. You may not have played it, but you should at least know, you should have followed sport, you should have, because that is obviously going to be crucial once you start, doing your program. But I don't think it's necessary that that one should have played sport to actually do an MBA or get into sports management or not.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So hello, I have basically two questions. First is for you, sir. In sports like maybe karate, taekwondo, archery, there is not so much glamour, and the money involved or invested by the government or many companies, say like Reliance Sports Industries and all those is less. How does a player survive? Because I have interviewed many athletes, mainly from taekwondo and karate industry, who say that whenever there are tours or tournaments which are into Europe or the Middle East countries, they have to manage all their finances all by themselves. So how difficult is it for a person who doesn't have many political connections or what you get some जान पहचान है तो यार finance मिल जाएगा and we can go to the countries. So that is the first question. And for you two people, my question is, how does politics affect the sports industry? How it has affected, it is, and it will affect. Like you have seen people like due to politics, corruption, and maybe many people who have good connections get more opportunities to represent a particular team, and the people who are really talented and do not have that much connection in the industry face some struggle. So how do you cope up with it?
Are you a journalist or are you training to be a journalist?
I think it's already.
No, seriously, I'm asking.
Yes, I'm aspiring.
Okay. So you're doing well there. You're asking all the politically sensitive questions. No, listen, I have never held back, right? So to answer your question, I have always maintained, even today, even though I did speak good about the federation and the government, I think that every athlete who has achieved anything in Indian sport for the last 50 years has done it in spite of the system, not because of the system. Right. I'm very clear on that. I have got into multiple skirmishes and multiple controversies, but that's just how it is. Having said that, I also want to clarify that the government can only do so much, right? For them, like he said, it is first about roti, kapda, makan, and then all of the other things follow. So, unfortunately, it is true, right? Sports like judo, sports like karate, all these other sports, the athletes really struggle. It's not an easy life. They struggle to get funds. They struggle to get a lot of things. But again, I mean, I would say that why did athletes or sports people play the game 40, 50 years ago? It was to basically enjoy the game, right? And while it is easy to sit here in an air-conditioned room and sit on a dais and say this, that is the fact of the matter. The kind of fillip that athletics is going to get because of Neeraj Chopra is going to be massive. So we just need that one person really to succeed in judo or fencing. I mean, look at boxing and wrestling, right? I mean, they were nowhere. It just needed one, or shooting, it just needed one Abhinav Bindra to actually change that. Again, having said that, I know for a fact that we are in talks with the Manipur government in the northeast, where the kids are so physically strong and they are, generally they are fit, right? I mean, it's because they have to walk to school and stuff like that, where they're looking at sports like judo, they're looking at, of course, boxing and wrestling is a given now because of Mirabai and because of, Mary Kom and stuff. But they're looking at sports like judo, they're looking at contact sports to actually get funding. So things are moving slowly, right? At some level they are moving fast as well. It's just that, the other countries are moving a little quicker, right? But I believe that these sports need to get priority, but again, to be honest, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And every country goes through this transition. We are not the first country.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, some of the taekwondo players are doing well by the way, and they are getting funded by Gold Sports and others. So, Aman Kavya, Shivam Shetty, these guys are going out. Recently went to Iran, went to Russia for this one trophy. So, it's not as if it's a completely neglected sport. It's getting funded. There are people, if not government, who are funding it too. To your question about politics, yes, it impacts. Politics not at choosing a player and who goes over, that to me is at micro level. But there are much bigger issues which can be affected by politics. For example, our complete federation system. The way the elections happen at the local level, at the city level, and then at the state level, and then at the national federation level. Bringing in sports code, the pushback on the sports code, and those are things which are very, very important. Which is, if the politics goes out of that, you could have better managers and better policymakers who come in, finally make things, accelerate things, and things can happen much faster. Second is also also interventions like, so when you are thinking 5 years, if suppose this is a general problem, and it's controversial in that sense. We bring in World Cups, we bring in Women's World Cup in India, under 17. So, and my question always has been, is that the right policy movement? Is that the right allocation of funds? Which is happening when your IWL matches are played with holes in the ground. So, like, if you don't have a proper ground to play IWL, is it worth putting a mega event like that and spending money on that? Because that's then temporary play, will not create. So where should the money, what kind of systems we should build inside? Khelo India has been done, but it's away from side, it's not being involved. So what can we do with side? That would help, overall sports industry. As I believe, things will change. They will change as more commercial interest will come in. For next another 7-10 years, you will see waves of people coming in spite of the system, as what Gaurav said, and still proving, and we will keep having more interest. And slowly the pressure will build up for cleaning up, for getting a better management, even in politics. Finally, politics is all about all of us who give votes, right? So, and not only politics, look at the impact of what we are ready to spend on supporting these guys, right? So if we go and watch the matches, right, except for same people for cricket, we can shell out 3,500 and go and see an IPL match, right? But we can't shell out 350 rupees to go and see these sports, right? So the more and more, and it's not our fault, it's a vicious cycle. Slowly you start coming out of it.
Yeah, you would like to add anything? No. Yeah. Just introduce your name and the question that you did.
Hello sir, my name is Swapni. My question is for Gaurav sir, sir. Sir, this is more from a footballer perspective, an aspiring footballer perspective. So, at a grassroots level, he is aspiring to be a professional player. So, at certain level, let's say under 18, under 21, he is able to play, but as discussed earlier, not everybody can make it to the top. So, at that particular point in time, that guy still has an interest in sports and now want to get into a thing like sports management. And how do you advise such kind of scenarios?
Yeah, so if the interest is hardcore sports and you feel that there is a possibility that the kid will not, or the student will not make a career, which is true for a very large population. But if the kid already, or do along with him already plan to put in sports management, should start preparing for a management program right from now. So there are graduation level management programs. Till 12 there is nothing exceptional to be done. It should be decent enough with the base courses and stuff like that. Move into sports management. For that matter, we are now planning to start for the first time in GISP introductory programs at 11th and 12th for sports management. These will be introductory programs running about 40 hours in a year as an elective, so that the kids get oriented to sports management. They know whether, like in 11, 12, they don't make choices, but they are at least aware of it. And then when they come to graduation level, then they can choose to pick up. So we are already planning to start, might take another 6 months.
Yes, anybody else?
Just move that.
We'll just take one at a time. The gentleman at the end.
Hello, my name is Suresh. I actually wanted to ask a question to Neil sir as well as Gaurav sir. Actually, touching upon the policy making aspect. So the thing is, cricket in general in India has been considered as a primary sport for the past 40 odd years as so. So in terms of the policy making for other sports such as football or tennis or badminton, how do you see over the past few years or even now with regards to ISL getting the popularity it has, the policy making change as well happening so that the governance structure is changing for the grassroots as well as the professionals coming into the sport, helping them get into the limelight for Indian football or Indian tennis. And in terms of fan engagement as well, now again with cricket, if what I have seen so far is if there's a match at 7 o'clock of an Indian Premier League team or an Indian cricket team, but compared to an ISL team, people will watch the cricket match. So how do you think the capturing of these fans who are probably who want to watch the football match, but the number of people watching is less. So how's the change happening is what I'm asking.
So, see on the how the policy changes. The policy you have already seen in BCCI there was a push to put sports scoring. The real impact of that is on the grassroots, is on your local tier structures. So if you have a much better running city level federations, you will have better competitions, you will have more vibrant pyramid of progression. We as a city are not in the best of position. But wherever this has done, say Mumbai is a shade better than Pune, and Mumbai is producing so many players now at the national level. If the policy making is right, even at the local and the regional level, I mean it's not known. Mumbai being a cricket city is still producing, would have at least 25 footballers playing at the national level, which is quite high for a city after Goa, Calcutta, and so on and so forth. I mean, leave the state of Kerala and Punjab, but from a single city, probably would be third, fourth highest producing there, just because their structure is much better. It's 5-tier structure. So policy making right goes down to that level, but I do see changes starting to happen and would happen more, and the pressure has to come, from participants, from people who are all stakeholders in that. But hopefully, this is something which is still can't say. I mean, Khelo India was a great initiative, brought up like but much better utilization of funds, put up something like that. I hope things like that. Odisha government again, if you look at the way they are promoting sports in that state, it's phenomenal. So we are already seeing some signs of that. When we become what sports or sports lover become important for politicians, for their own interest, they better do. Most of the tournaments like for Kabaddi and all, I don't know how many of you know, are funded by local politicians from their funds. Because they are important leadership for them, they fund it at that time. When as a group of enthusiasts we become important, we make it
I'll ask the question to you, Suresh. What do you think is at the core of fan engagement? Like, of engaging fans, what do you think is the base of that?
Just right packaging and providing the viewers the experience they want to see in terms of sports.
In a way, it's relationship and consistency. We learned that over years and years. So other things in patience. When you're building a relationship with somebody, you need patience. You can't just come on strong and expect them to love you now and buy things from you and whatever it might be. ISL is only 8 years old. It's a toddler. It's young. When I joined Major League Soccer, it was 2002. The league was only 6 years old. I was the head of fan development, and I would take my friends to New Jersey, to the Meadowland Giant Stadium, 100,000 or 80,000 seat stadium, American football stadium, hot summer day, 5,000 people would be there. My friends would laugh at me. What are you doing all day? What kind of fan development person? No one's even at this game. But we were planting seeds, building relationships, creating programs, creating partnerships. We didn't think that overnight it's going to happen. It's going to happen over time. If anybody watches the MLS Cup, which is going on Sunday, well, it's our 1:30 a.m. on the 12th for us, Portland Timbers versus New York City FC. Watch the highlight. Watch what that match is like. It's unbelievable. It's the most relevant thing in all of the Pacific Northwest. And even in New York, everyone's supporting what New York City FC is doing now. But that's 25, 26 years later. So what I mean by that is that we need what our clubs can be doing. ISL, PKL, any other league that's coming there. Just start hiring people who understand relationship building. Of course you use digital marketing. These are mediums. Digital marketing, broadcast. These are platforms, technology. But first and foremost, you're all human beings. I'm not watching that match at 7:30, or I will, I love ISL, but but others, somebody might not, because they don't feel an emotional connection to it. How do you build an emotional connection? Over time, with consistency, showing you really care about them. And that's like I said, it's an art. Relationship building is not a science. It's an art. It comes from your heart. It also comes from knowing how to use tools. So that's what we learned in the US over a long period of time. I learned a lot in that process. I came out strong, too strong. Then I scaled back. How do I really love my friends? How do I build things to show that I love them? How do I ask them for things without asking for things? So that's what we have to do in India more. We've done it. We know how to do it. It's just that we have to do it consistently with the right people, and that's why the right resources that we're trying to develop, either at GISB or other institutes, is about people who can think from their heart and their head, not just from the quick return on investment.
Right, we'll just take one more question now. Oh, okay. I think that shows the quality of the session, which is so many questions coming in. Yep.
And we'll be around as well. In case your questions don't get answered, I'm happy to stick around.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Abhijit. Actually, basically my question is for all of you. So, what future do you see for the sports like football in the country which is dominated heavily by the cricket, and where the football fans or any other sports fans struggle to get at least live telecast of the match, and fans need to beg for the Star Sports or any other channel or federations to get the live telecast. So, what future do you find for all these sports?
Yeah.
And one more thing, we all are from Pune. So when will get any new club? Which is
Now you have asked what you wanted to ask.
ये चीज हम भी उनको इतने टाइम से पूछ रहे कि यहाँ पे हमारा क्लब क्या है? Yeah, but I think it's a very important question, because when you speak about things in the grassroots, you all want one club that you can look up to. You all want that you look up to. So I think anybody would want to take that small bell on this movie. Yeah, go ahead.
As far as Pune is concerned, it should see a club, but not at an ISL level. We are not commercially still ready for a club right now. And basically in league, it's still in sports like football, especially at the ISL level, because it's quite a bit of investment. After IPL, the highest investment that is required for running a club is in ISL. Far more than Kabaddi or any other league, right? So, that kind of commitment for a long term without looking for a return in short run is not going to happen at the ISL level in near future at all. So it's sorry to say, but
I think the important question is that if the team does come and the match is at Balewadi, how many people from Deccan Gymkhana will travel to Balewadi to see the match? There's only one hand that went up.
So I think that's a very important question. What my observation has been is to do with the sport. Now, I remember there was one IPL game, Kings 11 Punjab was playing Delhi at the stadium, and we had 30,000 people watching the match. And when you come to Pune,
ask me, Roshan, for 5 years, starting from the first time after having the club, after buying the ISL rights for Pune, and I came to see a I-League derby. It was the two clubs. It's a derby. It's a city derby. And there were less than 100 people in the stadium. And I had just taken over ISL club. And I'm like, wow. Okay, and some of the people might be here who know when the first time I called for a fan meet, 21 people, on a fan meet in the city, right? And then we went out of it saying, all 21 of us, let's build 21 fans. So each one 21 and go out and reach out to more fans. And we started building it, back-breaking work to reach 8, 9, 10, 12,000 people in the stadium, filling up. Every day being a effort to make it happen. We reached there, but it was not sustainable for a longer run from the investment perspective. And it's okay, we will have a club, but we should at least have a club which is at a I-League to I-League level. We surely deserve a I-League club because there's enough there's fandom, and easily it can be managed from the resources, fan resources and corporates here, that we can definitely look to having a I-League club soon. And the football will come up, Abhijit.
Yes,
Football, sports like football will come up. It's gonna take some time, as with any sport, right? So, but it is highly participative sport in the country. Like in terms of team sports, it's second only to cricket. So it is one sport which will come up based on our, obviously, if Indian team's performance goes up, if we move into the top 50, 60, we get a chance to play in the World Cup in next 10 years, we'll have a huge jump there because the participation levels are high.
Right, yeah, we'll just take one last question. Yeah, that gentleman behind now.
Hello everyone, my name is Pranav. My question is basically to all the panelists. Do you think that the Indian sports ecosystem is actually lacking sports counseling? And if you agree with me, I would like to know from Neil sir, do you think that sports management organization can take any steps towards creating a segment into sports counseling as such in the future?
Counseling, you mean by therapy, psychology, or counseling?
No, just guiding students, because there are loads of
Consultation.
players. Yeah, consultants.
Career counseling.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it's funny, I'm training to be a life coach in that sense, because I've understood, as I said earlier, mentorship is one of the massive lacking elements in our ecosystem. We're all doing, we're all thinking, we're all talking, but not a lot of people are guiding. And even when an industry is nascent, it's also very typical that the people at the top are not always pulling the people at the bottom up, because there's a certain insecurity that happens here. And it creates divide, it creates dissonance. What we need in our industry is collaboration, ecosystem building. And it takes a lot of humility and understanding. So your question, I mean, this is again my opinion. I believe it is the most important thing. So one of the things I'm very happy with what we've been able to do at GISB over the last 4 years is take people who are industry practitioners and turn them into faculty. And that doesn't mean you just go up and talk about what you do at work every day. That means understanding how to teach and take what you do, turn it into theory and a practical application and teach it. So over 4 years, I've seen incredible professionals turn into incredible faculty. But the next level of that, how can these incredible faculty now turn into incredible mentors? And I would love to see a head of mentorship in Indian sports, really, coming from either the government or a private, and actually sending out people to mentor people in grassroots, village, in communities, in the university level, in the professional levels, to help them understand what are the challenges and limitations, but also what are the opportunities and where can they contribute as well. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question, but I think this is the most important thing that can take our industry up to another level as well.
All right, thank you so much for answering all the questions. You're running short on time, of course, but each gentleman will be around to answer your questions in case you have any with them personally. But thank you everyone for being such a fantastic audience. To all the viewers watching us live on Sports World, thank you for being such a great audience as well. And on that note, of course, I'd like to call this summit officially off, and I request everybody, the refreshments served for you, also kindly enjoy for this serve. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.